Hey, everybody. You think you understand inflation? Well, think again. Today, I'm going to show you the real inflation rate, and better yet, how you can fight back. So stay tuned to the end because I'm going to give you some great tips and techniques. Mark Miller here with Hilton Wealth. So inflation is not something people read about in government reports every day, obviously. Please know that what you do read is not necessarily the inflation rate, but it's not what you read in those reports that's important. It's how people are really feeling out there. So groceries, gas, housing, insurance, taxes, everyday living costs have skyrocketed. Well, we all know that, right? So, hey, a Trader Joe's grocery bill has risen from $122 before COVID to closer to like $200 today. Gas is costing significantly more, and housing costs are climbing massively. So this is why really many families, they're kind of feeling like their income, savings, their retirement dollars obviously aren't stretching like they used to. So inflation is not just a number, it's a quiet erosion of lifestyle. So one of the things that people don't understand is how everything is inflating because of how the monetary system we're in. There's being a lot of money that's pumped into the system really ever since 2008 and 9. And then we had COVID, which just exacerbated the problem. So it's inflated everything over time. So we believe wealth planning kind of has to start with some version of reality, not just what a report says, not just what the market did this week or last week, but what families are actually experiencing in their day-to-day lives. So inflation is a silent tax on every dollar you've worked hard to earn. And you probably heard me in a lot of podcasts talk about how important taxes are to be under control, because that has a lot to do with building your wealth. Inflation is the silent tax on every dollar you've really worked hard to earn. So, hey, by the way, anything I talk about today, it's not investment advice. You need to do your own research and spend time with a competent advisor. So why is the official inflation rate maybe not real life? Why are we getting these numbers that are totally different from what we're really feeling and experiencing? The official inflation numbers matter, but they may not always reflect what families are really feeling out there and what's going on in your actual budget. So the official CPI numbers may say the inflation rate right now is, say, around 4%, but really, let's talk reality, because it's more like probably 8 to 10% right now. So government inflation gauges are often disconnected from real life costs. Official inflation affects important items like, Social Security, cost of living adjustments, interest rate policy, but not really real living and what it's like to be out there in the economy. So think of it this way. So the government is really more doing the CPI in many ways for their own benefit, although they publish that and people say, oh, is inflation is at 4%. If the official number is lower than what households actually experience, like retirees, savers, families, then they're going to be falling back faster than they really realize. So this is not just some academic debate. It affects planning. And it affects real life. So many families feel that official inflation numbers don't fully capture the rising cost of things that they actually buy most often. And they're right, because they don't. So the inflation number that matters most is not always the number on the headlines. So just keep that in mind when you see that CPI advertised or put out there. It's the one on the inside of your household and your budget that matters most. So let's talk about one of the key things, and that's the housing problem inside inflation. Housing is one of the largest components of inflation, And the way it's measured can make a big, big difference. So housing represents 34% of that CPI that you see advertised, making it the largest single component of the index. Since 1983, the CPI has used, owners, maybe equivalent rent, to estimate housing cost instead of directly measuring home prices and mortgage costs that are actually in the economy. So this can really understate the pain homeowners feel when mortgage costs, insurance, maintenance, property taxes, repairs rise. For families, housing inflation is not theoretical. It's not just a number. It affects affordability, retirement, relocation decisions, downsizing, estate planning, cash flow. One of the things that's going on right now for, and especially young people coming out of college or starting their careers, is even trying to rent a place because the cost of rent has gone up. Why? Because the cost of real estate has gone up massively. So those costs have to be passed on to the renters. So housing is often one of the largest financial decisions a family makes or individuals make. So when housing costs rise, it does not just impact today's budget. It can impact the future for you, building wealth. It can slow your wealth building down massively, and even tax strategy, legacy planning, all of these things that we work with our clients on. So when housing gets more expensive, proper wealth planning gets even more important and is much more important to do well. So how do inflation statistics, how can they change the story of inflation? Small changes in inflation methodology can create large differences over time. So one of the examples is quality adjustments and tracking can kind of change things, where statisticians may adjust prices lower if a product improves in quality or something like that. Also, I know I'm getting into some weeds here, but geometric mean weighting, where inflation calculations may assume consumers substitute cheaper goods when prices rise, such as buying hamburger instead of steak. This planning has issues with it. So if a family is forced to downshift their lifestyle, that does not necessarily mean inflation disappears. It may mean inflation has reduced their choices. So at Hilton Wealth, we don't want clients to simply survive inflation by lowering their standard of living year after year. That's not really an option. We want to figure out ways around it. How can we adjust our wealth planning to take it into account? So by lowering the standard of living year after year, that just puts you in a place where, obviously most people don't want to be. So the goal is to build a plan that protects your purchasing power and gives family more choices, not fewer choices. So inflation does not only raise prices, it can quietly lower choices in general. So let's talk about folks that might be looking at retirement or are, having portfolios that are generating income on a fixed income. Inflation is especially dangerous for retirees, savers, and fixed income investors. If inflation is understated, retirees fall well behind these Social Security adjustments. They're not going to keep up with their actual cost. It can also mislead investors who think they're beating inflation when they may actually not be, winning at all, that they're, again, going backwards every year. So fixed income investors can be hit hard because CDs, money markets, bonds, they may not provide, and they will not provide, enough real return to stay ahead of inflation. And I could probably add on their taxes too. So here's like a CD example. A $10,000 one-year CD earning, let's say, 1.9% grows to $10,190. But if inflation is 3.3%, which we know it's probably even more than that, but just as an example, 3.3%, the purchasing power falls, not goes up, but falls by $140 before even considering taxes. So this is why retirement income planning cannot just ask, oh, how much income do you have to have? It also has to ask about risk. What will that income actually buy 5, 10, or 20 years from now? So income is important, but purchasing power is really what protects your lifestyle long term. So why sitting still is really not a very good strategy. So holding too much cash at any given time at low yield, fixed income types of rates might feel safe and it feels like a good thing to do at the time, but inflation can make it really, really risky over time. So cash may provide comfort and liquidity, but long-term cash can lose massive purchasing power due to the inflation outpacing that yield, which has happened for years and years and years. So the answer is not to take, reckless market lists. The answer is to build a more thoughtful, diversified, risk-aware plan. So we have to still get quality returns that can keep up with, if not well ahead of inflation, but also has to have a good balance to where all of a sudden you're not down 30 or 40% in your portfolio, and then you're in real trouble because you're pulling income from a portfolio that is not maintaining value at all. So investors can't afford really to sit back and watch spending power just disappear year after year. But I'm going to warn that taking similar or greater market losses is not the solution. Again, it has to be a well thought out and well balanced plan. So the smart money does not just choose between hiding in cash and gambling in the market by jumping back and forth. The smart money builds structure into it. Liquidity for short-term needs, income for stability, diversification for resilience, and growth for long-term purchasing power protection. So safety is not just avoiding volatility. Safety is protecting your future buying power so you know that you're going to be able to live the lifestyle that you want to live. So, by the way, if you've gotten value from what you're hearing so far today, please like us, share us, and subscribe to the podcast. We really appreciate it, and it would help us out a lot. So let's talk about the TruWealth solution here. Diversification beyond, say, the regular static, boring, what you've heard a lot, the 60-40 portfolio. A traditional 60-40 portfolio is probably not enough in every inflationary environment. You must diversify in the proper way across a wider range of assets, buying at attractive prices and favoring investments that can produce steady income. So sleep like a baby portfolios, which is sometimes what we call the TruWealth portfolios, will have equal allocations to safety, stocks, bonds, commodities, alternatives, which is well outperforming a traditional 60-40, which is well outperforming the traditional 60-40 portfolio. The bigger point is that inflation can affect asset classes differently. Stocks, bonds, commodities, real estate, all those things, they can each play a different role and help fight against inflation in different ways. So, the key here is a portfolio should not be built around one prediction. It should be built to handle multiple types of outcomes. So one of the things that we do, you may have heard of Monte Carlo simulations. Well, we'll go back in our algorithms and all the software and everything, we go back and look at hundreds of different ways that portfolios can be designed to then those simulations will show us, can it withstand, say, 90% of those or 95% of those? So this is really at the heart of the Hilton TruWealth portfolios. So we believe true wealth planning goes well beyond Wall Street's traditional one-size-fits-all portfolio. It's about building a coordinated plan around risk, income, taxes, liquidity, inflations, and ultimately legacy for a lot of our clients. So diversification is not about owning more things. It's about owning the right things for the right reasons. And that's what we do when we really put together well thought out true wealth portfolios. So one thing about inflation, though, it does kind of weed out winners versus losers. Inflation can hurt consumers, savers, fixed income investors, but it can also create opportunities in certain areas. And what I mean by that is actually assets going up in value. So when you invest, that the assets going up in value can offset inflation because inflation is actually driving those assets to go up. So let me give you an example, like commodities and agriculture are areas that may benefit from an inflationary environment. As an example, fertilizer, nutrients that they put in the soil are examples of companies tied to food production, agricultural inputs, and global supply chains. From a pure inflation standpoint, how you can protect yourself with these types of investments. Inflation and supply chain stress can create opportunity in real assets, commodities, agriculture, and essential industries. So we have to look at that. How can that possibly help in the inflationary environment we're in? So we're not, making blanket recommendations here, obviously, to go in, jump into commodities or real estate or anything like that. The point is that inflation does not affect all assets equally. Some businesses struggle with an inflationary environment, while others may have pricing power or benefit from higher prices in general. So the smart money, the key here is the smart money does not just complain about inflation. It asks where inflation creates risk, where it creates opportunity, and how those pieces might fit into a broader wealth plan overall. So inflation is a threat, but for prepared investors, inflation is a threat. But for prepared investors, it can also reveal a lot of opportunity. So I want to explain why cash still matters, though, but it needs to have a purpose. And you should go back if you haven't seen it already. I did a podcast a few weeks ago on Warren Buffett and the cash positions he's in and why that might be important to you and why cash can be important. But cash is not bad, but lazy cash can be a real problem. Good portfolios often have, say, 5 or 10% cash cushion inside the model portfolio, and maybe separate monies even for an emergency fund. So this is an important distinction. Emergency cash is for kind of life surprises, but for portfolio cash is for investment opportunities. So they call it in the investment world, it might be what's called dry powder. So it's there in case there's some discounted opportunities or things you want to take advantage of. Well, then you need to have some cash to be able to do that. Cash gives peace of mind, flexibility, and the ability to act during market pullbacks, but investors should still be thoughtful about where cash is actually held. So in some brokerage sweep accounts, you may pay lower rates while the broker keeps much more of the interest spread. So you kind of need to look around, see where you can get the best returns. And certain investments, there's some new investments starting to come out that pay higher yields, but also keep your money safe, similar to like a money market mutual fund might keep your money safe. So this is a very, kind of family office style concept. Cash is not just cash. It has a job. It plays a role. Some cash is for emergencies. Some cash is for near-term income needs. Some cash is for that dry powder, and then some cash is simply just waiting for an opportunity. But you have to really take a good look at your portfolio and see how that cash, if you got the proper amounts, to truly work best in your portfolio to accomplish these things. So, bottom line, cash should not be there to just sit around. It should have a specific and really good purpose in your portfolio. So what's the TruWealth takeaway here? So the funny thing is, wealth planning, and proper wealth planning, I should say, is inflation planning. Inflation planning is not separate from wealth planning at all. It's central to it. So inflation, again, like I said before, it affects retirement income, Social Security purchasing power, portfolio returns, cash savings, taxes, housing costs, insurance costs, business expenses, estate planning, and ultimately legacy goals for you. So at Hilton Wealth, we believe families, they need more than just a portfolio. They need a coordinated wealth plan that looks at all of these things together and designs a plan where everything works synergistically together to take care of inflation. So it does not just challenge your portfolio, inflation doesn't, it challenges your entire wealth plan. So by the way, if you want to learn more about these concepts, go to HiltonWealth.com. We'll send you a complimentary copy of Hilton Wealth, How to Invest Like an American Dynasty. Finally, inflation is not just a static government report that comes out. So be very leery of that, and you have to look deeper than that. It's something families feel every day at the grocery store, at the gas pump, housing costs, insurance premiums, and retirement income. And why we can't control inflation, we can control how we plan for it. The lesson's not to panic. The lesson's is to prepare. The smart money folks, they understand that cash has a role, income has a role, diversification has a role, and long-term planning is the key. At Hilton Wealth, that is what true wealth planning is designed to do. Help families protect what they have built, stay positioned for opportunity at all times, and preserve purchasing power for a lifetime. So ultimately, that will affect the legacy that you may want to build. A true wealth plan is designed to fight back with clarity, discipline, and purpose. That brings us to the end of today's episode of Hilton TruWealth. If you want to learn more about topics relating to building your wealth, tax planning, cutting-edge tech, and family office services, we're here to help. Be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts so you'll never miss an episode, and give us a like or a review. And if you're curious to learn more about your wealth, tune in every Tuesday for new insights and special guests. If you found value in what you heard today, share it with someone who might benefit too. For more insights, resources, and to get a free copy of our book, Hilton Wealth, How to Invest Like an American Dynasty, visit us at HiltonWealth.com. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep building your true wealth.